Join Dr. Victoria Dunstan for Divine Connections on Tuesday, May the 11th, 7 p.m. EST. Raw and uncut relationship coach Dr. Mark T. Jones of Tampa, Florida returns. Join us live on Facebook and YouTube. You don't want to miss this.
Like Brother Meyer said, you got to have somebody, that you just be transparent, be real with. Don't fake it till you make it. We over here about to kill each other. You telling me fake it till I make it. And I learned long ago that there is no need in trying to pretend in front of all these phones, trying to become who's who among nobodies. I need to be real about my process. I need to be whole in my soul. And I need to get ready to learn how to love somebody until one of us go in.
Pastor Mark, I don't know what's going on with my internet, but I was introducing you. Pastor Mark T. Jones from the Center for Manifestation in Tampa, Florida. Pastor Mark, I'm going to let you go ahead and talk to us a little bit about what you're going to share with us tonight, and hopefully my internet will show everything properly.
Thank you so much again, Dr. Victoria, for inviting me to be a part of this process of building relationships. I know we're going to talk, a little bit about a lot of subjects tonight, like we did last time. But one of the things that I really wanted to spend some time on tonight, just talking about the process of preparing oneself for serious relationship. As you know, I recently created a masterclass called Mordecai's Class for Up and Coming Queens. And so that's really what I want to focus on, and that is the process of preparation and making sure that those who are coming into relationship are doing the very necessary work in the soul to ensure that they're able to not only create a relationship, but to cultivate a relationship. So we're really talking about relational wholeness and just making sure that a person does the emotional work necessary in order to gear themselves up for creating healthy relationships. So I hope we can share a little bit along those lines tonight.
Well, I am super excited. I'd like to encourage everybody, get your pencil, your pad, however you take notes tonight, and prepare yourself, for the revelation that I believe is going to be released tonight. I think that if you're really serious about building a relationship that lasts, these type of sessions are so vitally important. And so tonight, Dr. Mark is back by popular demand. So many of you were so blessed and encouraged by him being with us the last time. And even though some of you watched it later on, it's amazing, that the teaching doesn't stop the night of the event. It continues on and on and on. And people everywhere get an opportunity to see it. And so, Dr. Mark, with that being said, you talked about, I know you have a Mordecai's Master Class, and I know you, I think it specifically addresses some of the issues with women. Can we start there tonight?
Absolutely. And I made sure that I could be in touch with my sisters tonight. I found the girliest room in my house, my wife's shoe closet. And so I believe I'm I'm going to be able to be touch with the infirmities of some of the sisters that are out here today. Uh, but realistically, what the class is about, and what I hope we can sort of look at, as I said a moment ago, it really is about the process of relational readiness. You know, if you think about Mordecai, you think about Esther, you think about Naomi, you think about Ruth. These are all relationships in essence that were teaching someone how to engage the relational scene. And so the class, for example, one of the first lessons in the class is called Who's Raising You? And I'm really talking about how Mordecai was sort of used by God to prepare Esther, who would become a queen, to be the person that the king would select as his queen. And so that's one of the focuses that are in the class. We also talk about self-care and the fact that you ought to be taking care of yourself so well that when a person comes into your life, for example, dating, they're able to see how you care for yourself and take that as a cue to how you should be cared for. There's some people shouldn't be shocked when they're abused because they were already abusing themselves. And so when you see how a person cares for themselves, that's more inclined to cause that individual to care for that person at the same level, or at least have an expectation, have that person's expectation for what they will want in relationship. One matter of fact, one of the called "Do I have an abuse me" sign on my forehead? And we talk about why people draw abusers into their lives and what it is that they're doing that causes specifically abusive people to come into their lives, and how essentially how cleaning that up really is an inside job. I don't know, I'm sure you've seen people that go from one abusive relationship to another, and they honestly believe that the reason for that is externally. They don't realize that it's really an inside job. And so there has to be a work that's done internally in order to not come across in such a way as to permit abuse. So those are some of the things that, like I said, we'll cover in the class. There's another lesson called Keys for Blending Families Without Breaking Bonds. So we talk about, if you're dating someone or engaged to someone and they already have kids, you already have kids, how do you blend your families together so that you don't break the bond you have with your children? So those are just some of the topics that are in the master class, and then we also have a lot of Q&A that goes on there as well.
Let me ask you, going back to the Mordecai's master class, how vital is it that a person is properly prepared for their relationship?
Well, I always say this: things don't go wrong, they begin wrong. Things don't go wrong, they begin wrong. You cannot create right relationships from a wrong state. You cannot create functional relationships from dysfunction. And so it's absolutely necessary that a person does the work of self preparation. They have to go through a preparation process in order to get into that space where they can entertain relationships that are healthy. And sadly, and another reason I made the class is most people don't even know what process looks like. They have no idea what process looks like, and they don't have any idea what it means to have an accountability with someone who they trust to prepare them for a relationship as well.
Wow. What does process look like?
Well, number one, I'm going to just start. This is where it starts. I always say no one should be dating or on the dating scene who doesn't have a firm grip on two things. This is as basic as it gets, but it's solid. The first thing everyone entering into that space has to have a firm grip on is their identity. Who am I? That's number one. We have so many people that are trying to create relationships and they want to become Mrs. somebody else, and they don't even know who they are. So if you go and you become Mrs. somebody else, the tendency is to become that person. You morph into whatever they've got going on. That's dangerous. That could be dangerous. So we have to have a firm grip on our identity. Who am I? Who am I? And the second thing we have to have a firm grip on before we enter into that relational, space is our value. And that is, what am I worth? What is my worth? You see? And I'm gonna paint a picture for how I help people to resolve that. You think about this from a Christian standpoint. Jesus was in the water being baptized by John the Baptist. Heavens opened up and a voice said, "This is my beloved son in whom I'm well pleased." The Holy Spirit came down upon him, affirming him. Notice the Father said, "This is my son in whom I am well pleased." That establishes identity. So we have to have a solid sense of identity in Christ before we go tying our lives with other people. Mm-hmm. And then when you think about Acts 20:28 says God purchased the church with his own blood. And what really determines our sense of value is how much the purchaser was willing to pay for us. So my value is not attached to the cost of my house, the kind of car I drive, the money in my bank account, the platforms I stand on, any association with rich people, famous people. My value was defined by how much someone was willing to pay for me. So you see, knowing who we are, Son of God, knowing what we're worth, the very blood of God, that has to be something that is established in our soul before we throw ourselves in that dating arena. Because if you don't know your identity, then you morph into whatever these other people have going on. And if you don't know your value, you compromise. You compromise and you become a shell of who you really are, trying to please someone else. And so those two things alone, identity and value, are two things that a person has to have a good solid grip of before they get into that relational space.
Wow. So in a lot of cases, there are people that are looking for relationships, yet they do not understand how to even find out their identity, who they are, what they're called to do, what their purpose is in life, or their value is predicated upon the fact that they came from a broken family, or they didn't have a Mordecai to kind of, guide them along the way, to kind of say, how to gauge, is this a good person for me? They may be a good person, but they may not be a good person for me. So if a person is kind of in that position right now and they're watching, what would be your counsel to them, in a short form? Because I know it's a lot that you would have to say, but everybody don't have, a lot of people don't have fathers. They don't understand the purpose of a spiritual father. They just think they're cute and all this kind of stuff. They don't see the value in a master class. They don't see the value in taking time for something like this. I think I've said a whole lot, but basically, what would you speak to that person that just may have ran across us randomly tonight?
Well, I want you to think about the our external environment. You take a look out in the field, and there you see an oak tree. And I want you to think about the mastery of God in that before that oak tree was planted in the earth, God provided an entire ecosystem to ensure that tree would not only survive, but that tree would thrive. And think of these words. He said, "Are you not more important than the flowers in the field that are here today and gone tomorrow?" So, Dr. Victoria, God has always given us around us an ecosystem of support. But many of us are very dismissive to the support that God puts around us. For example, if a person has, like you said, they've never been fathered. You have no idea how many people that I've married that I had to father, both the men and the women, before they could craft a successful relationship. We had to finish the work of fathering because they would drop. They're either they most didn't have their father in their life, or they had their father alive but not really in their life, that you coaching, developing, for the sake of a female, protecting, providing, securing. So I've seen a lot of women, like I said, in our church, I'm the first father they've ever had. You know, there's a number of people I've married that I had to father them in preparation to marriage. And so I said that to say this: there are people around you right now with whom God has entrusted and empowered and put something in them to help raise you up to become who you're supposed to be. But you have to go toward the process of engaging them for information, for accountability, and for what it is that God has put in them, so that they could help you in your process of becoming. So we got to stop dismissing the resources that are around us. You know, think about us as business people. I don't know everything I need to know in order to do everything I need to do until I can be in one meeting with someone and God will put in my heart, you need to reach out to that guy. You need mentorship from him. You need to be involved in this network. So by virtue of responding to that little check, I need to be around that guy. I can get in that person's schedule, get in their life, get the information I need, and then take my business, take my organization to the next level. So God has put in everyone's ecosystem. If God takes care of oak trees, you better believe he takes care of his children. But we are not very intentional. And that's the word I want to hammer home, is that if you're going to get whole, if you're going to get healthy, if you're going to break dysfunction, if you're going to move into a healthy space, you've got to be intentional about your own developmental process. And you got to trust that God has put everything you need right in your ecosystem, but you've got to now look for it. Sometimes you got to pray that God open your eyes so you can see it. And then you got to be the one going toward that resource so that you can get the help you need to become whole. You know, we have people, for example, that this Friday night, my wife and I have a date night scheduled with a young man. Okay. We have people that schedule to go out with my wife and I, a single individual, go out on a date night with us just to see what a functional relationship looks like. Oh, so wow. You see, that's the kind of stuff that some people need to swallow their pride and submit to process. Go out on date night with a healthy, functioning couple and ask them questions. Watch their interaction, get into their story, see how they've entered into the process of becoming what you now see. Because remember, there's no relationship that just automatically became what you see. It was a process attached to that. Right. And so let someone else cut your learning curve.
Wow, that is so good. Right now, you that are watching, I want you to share your comments. If you have any questions, I want you to tag somebody. I want you to reach out, because I know that there are people out there that are struggling to discover what a healthy relationship looks like. And the need to attend classes like this or the master class that Dr. Mark is offering, we need to get involved. When he's talking about ignoring the help that God put around you, a lot of times this may be the help that God is offering you. You know, trying to get you to recognize and realize that, you know, even Esther, even though she was called to be a queen, she had to be groomed by somebody. Somebody had to teach her, you know, the preparation that was necessary to become a person to walk in such a prestigious situation or relationship. And so each of us, every one of us, we need to have people in our lives before, during, and after. And if you follow that model, I promise you, you'll be a lot more successful. You won't make some of the mistakes that some of us have already made. And Dr. Mark, I know you've been married, I think you said 30 plus years, but I'm running into situations in you know, being a little bit older, finding out most people are not just divorced and remarried once, but sometimes 2 times, sometimes 3 times, and they're still struggling to try to find where they're missing it. Uh, they're not even understanding where they're making the mistakes, and this is serious.
Well, you know, the hardest place to see dysfunction is when you're standing right in the middle of it. That's the hardest place to spot dysfunction, to spot a cycle, is when you're in the midst of it. So, you know, and then we got to get over the delusion that that it, I've got to find the right person. Last time it was the wrong person. No, I've got to be the right person. I've got to focus on what I am, because I will attract according to my condition. You know, I have people that are all bent out of shape because they found out, because they of their ex and ex-husband and so on and so forth. And I often tell them, don't get upset about what you went through with that person and whatever they were, because that's the best you could have chosen with your soul in that condition. So work on the condition of your soul, and you will automatically choose. If you're whole, you will choose whole. If you're broken, you will choose broken. If you're dysfunctional, you'll choose dysfunction. So we got to work on the condition of our inward man, because that's what's going to change what we're attracted to and what's attracted to us as well. You got to be honest about that. I made a post the other day that you can't divorce your way into your destiny.
Oh, wow.
The biggest problem is there are so many people that don't understand covenant relationship, and they don't understand that just because things get difficult, that doesn't mean bail out. As a matter of fact, one of the things I posted the other day is that I believe that the very deliverances that we need in order to accomplish the true measures of our destiny are encrypted in the problems we're having with our spouse.
Wow. Wow.
I have so many pastors that look at my organization and the breadth of my organization, and they said, "Doc, man, just tell me one thing, what is it that put you in a position for God to trust you with all this He's trusted you with?" And this is what I always say: He trusted me to love one woman unconditionally and unreservedly, and that one decision positioned me to be trusted by God with everything I'm trusted with right now.
Wow. That's amazing. So are you discovering that there are more men out there like yourself?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think we mentioned this last time. Remember, Elijah said, "I'm the only one left." And God had to correct him and said, "No, there's 7,000 that are just as passionate about me as you are." See, the problem, Dr. Victoria, is most of the people that we're speaking to that are having these relational difficulties, they're not going to run into these kind of men in the orbit they're in.
Oh, wow.
And they don't have the courage to change their orbit, because in order to change your orbit, you have to become uncomfortable. You got to get around people you normally wouldn't get around. You got to have conversations that you got to educate yourself to have. You got to suffer the discomfort of stretching yourself to a new orbit. You got to get into another sphere of influences in many instances, because some of us don't realize, we think about it. You go to work, you go to church, you go home. You're likely to marry the Amazon guy or the U.S. Post guy or the garbage man with that kind of a routine. So a lot of times it's not that there aren't more good quality individuals out there. It's just that you're not going to, the moon is not going to bump into, our moon is not going to bump into Saturn's moons, because they're not in the same orbit. So you have to really be intentional about getting in other spaces. And, I've got one of my assistant pastors is about to get married. And for example, these, they're older than me. They're in their 60s. My assistant pastor and her fiance are in their 60s. And he was married 42 years. His wife died. So he's about to marry my assistant pastor. They met on Silver Singles. And so I know a lot of people are afraid to go to, again, to get out of this orbit they're in. Technology gives them the ability to do that. Then some people believe that anybody I talk to, I've got to get serious with, and that's not true. So there, people don't know how to make friends and then let God make a marriage out of friends. So that's another problem. Is there people have the notion that if we go out to dinner, we have to have a relationship that becomes, sexual, and no, we don't. We don't have to. We don't have to be anything other than friends, getting to know each other and doing life. So that's another thing. Also, is that many people don't know how to have pure closeness without it becoming sexual, and that's part of the problem. That's part of the dysfunction. Is that they don't know how to have pure closeness, just so they can see what this person is all about,
Right.
and then see if it goes somewhere from there.
Well, that was going to be my next question. You answered it before I asked. What is your perspective on dating sites and really getting to know people that way?
Yeah, my assistant pastor right now, he and his wife have been married for 6 years, and they met on social media.
Oh, wow. That's
And they're the matter of fact, they're Pastor Rodney and Fonda Norton. They're the ones you see doing my marriage classes at our church.
Oh,
They
wow.
they met on social media. So again, it's just a tool. It's just a medium of connecting with people. And again, I don't see anything wrong with it. There's no difference between walking out the door and meeting someone and meeting someone on social media.
Exactly.
Quite frankly, the real issue is, do you have a clear understanding of who you are and your value? Okay. And do you have a process of examining and observing a person to see what they're really all about before you become serious with them? So that's what matters more than anything else.
Wow, that's so interesting, because I run into people sometimes in my age group, which is 55 and older. I run into people who have this taboo about dating sites and about different ways of meeting people. But during the pandemic, surely they had to recognize that you couldn't even go to the grocery store some days. And I don't think it's that they're content being single. I think they just have embraced the fact that that's their portion and they refuse to step out. And I think in some cases that's good, but I also think in some cases they could be sort of cutting themselves short.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, now, it's funny. I had someone ask me a question in the master class yesterday. What if I don't want to be married? What if I don't want to have kids? What if I don't want all that? I said, you don't have to want it. And I gave them the scripture in 1 Corinthians 7, I believe it is, where Paul said, it's good that you be unmarried, because then you can be undistracted and focus on the Lord. So that's another thing we need to address, that not everyone should get married. Some people should stay single, have great friends, serve the Lord, and just live their life as unto the Lord. So that pressure to feel like I have to get married, I mean, that pressure shouldn't even exist, because clearly marriage is not for everyone. But I also believe, I'm certain that there is someone for everyone. And I'm not going to get into that, because it may, I'm going to just put it this way. I pastor a large church, and I've seen those who've been getting coupled up. There is someone for everyone.
That's funny.
There is someone for everyone. But now, if you start with the narrative that there are no more good men, there are no more good women. If you start with that narrative will define your reality. How you see will define how you look.
Wow.
So I see some people, and I don't want to get into that, but I see some people and I'm like, okay, now, all right, if they got someone, y'all cute folk ain't got no, y'all cute folk ain't got no excuse, because there is someone for everyone. Let's just put it that way.
Wow. Any singles out there? Do you have any questions? This is raw and uncut tonight. While we're waiting on some questions, talk to us about why you're shooting from your wife's shoe closet.
Well, I wanted to make sure I drew the women that are on the line into the conversation. I want them to know that I'm in touch with their infirmities. So I found the most foo-foo place in my whole house, my wife's shoe closet, and also because I'm here to share with you Mordecai's class for up and coming queens, the master class. In the master class, we talk about 10 indicators of spiritual and emotional health and relationships. We talk about, I answer the question, should I leave a relationship? I have a whole class called Should I Get Back with My Ex? Okay.
Wow.
Uh, what are the characteristics that successful men are looking for? For those you said, I don't want no scrub. What are the characteristics that successful men are looking for? Somebody asked the question. I created a whole video. Do I need a prenup? We talked about that in the class. Where is the husband they prophesied? That was a question somebody asked in the class. Where is the husband they prophesied? I've been prophesied husband 3 times. Where is the husband? So we got a whole class on that. I've got another one called Dating Damage Free. Dating Damage Free. Am I ready for marriage? We also talk about, let's see here. We also talk about, oh, I mentioned this one. Is there an abuse me sign on my forehead? And in that class, I really talk about what opens people up for abusive relationships. And that's a good point. So a person that has a person that does not have boundaries. For example, how will you date someone? What will you do if they buy you dinner? What, how much does dinner have to cost for you to have sex with them? All right. So stuff like that we deal with. And what I talk about in that class is that if you don't have boundaries, then you don't know your value. That's one of the ways you don't know your value is that you don't have boundaries. You don't have boundaries, then your neighbors start building sheds in your backyard.
Wow.
Because your boundaries are a reflection of your value. Your standards are a reflection of your perceived knowledge of your value. So we deal with all of those issues in the class, and also if anyone has any comments or questions, we also entertain that in the class as well.
Okay. Wow. There's just so much to unpack. And a lot of times people are shy about asking certain questions, and they're shy about you know, um, being as open in an open forum like this. So you
Mhm,
kind of got to ask the questions for them.
mhm,
One of the questions that I think people may want to know is there are a large number of people who claim to be Christians, but their lifestyle, when they start to date somebody or they start to meet somebody, and they do go on these dating sites and they say a Christian, it's almost everybody says they're Christian, but they don't carry the proper morals of a Christian. They're not, and that seems to be a major issue even on the dating sites. Um, could you address that?
Yeah, the Bible is still true in that a tree is known by the fruit that it bears. So one of the things that we talk about in the class, a matter of fact, the lesson is a dating damage free. We talk about how to get close enough to a person to observe their faith in action, but not so close you get pregnant.
Wow.
So
Wow.
it really comes down to this. We need to stop trying to transpose our values onto other people when we date them. We need to stop telling people what we're looking for. That's where people go wrong because you tell them everything you're looking for instead of just observing to see if they possess it. And then they become chameleons. They take on the form of your description. They play the part you describe, and then you don't know that until you got two little critters running around with their last name, and then all of a sudden you realize you made a mistake. So it really comes down to uh, engaging an individual for the purpose of just observing them to see what they're all about. You cannot, and I also teach this. Listen. You see, we got 2 ears and 1 mouth because we should learn to listen twice as much as we speak. Lit from the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. So we got to learn how to listen to people and pay attention to what it is that's coming out of their mouth because you cannot hide your heart from your conversation.
Mhm. Wow.
See, now what really, I'm telling you, what messes things up is when people get sexually involved with somebody they're dating. Because once you become sexually involved, discernment goes right out the window.
Right.
Discernment goes out the window. You start ignoring things you should be alarmed by. You become an enabler for a person. You start making excuses for things that you see in them, and then the worst case scenario, people begin taking on individuals as a project, believing that I can change him with the way I am, and that's not reality.
Let me ask you this question. In some cases, um, people are they're not ready for commitment.
Mhm.
What do you? But yet they say they want to be in a relationship. They want to be in a long-lasting relationship.
Mhm.
From a male's perspective, what are they really saying when they say that?
When men say they're not ready for commitment,
No, when they
they
say they are ready for a commitment, but they're non-committal
okay, they say they are, but they're not making the move toward really establishing a relationship.
with anybody. Yeah.
Okay, well, I believe that there's an element of double-mindedness there. For example, I have people that they'll date someone 5 years, and we're still trying to figure out if we're right for each other. That
Wow.
is absolute foolery. It does not take a man 5 years to decide if you're the one for him. It does not take a person that's holding up to be in a relationship with you that long to decide if you're the one. So that speaks to an element of double-mindedness. Okay. And think about this. If this person displays the double-minded tendency, I want to be in a relationship, but I'm not moving toward one. All right. That's double-mindedness. And now think about this. As long as you're in relationship with that person, you don't have any guarantee other than that's what they're going to demonstrate. There are so many people that again they don't learn that you don't have any guarantee that a person is going to be anything other than what you have already experienced with them. So believe them. If they're showing you this is what they're all about, they're wishy-washy, double-minded, non-committal. This speaks of an inward issues they haven't resolved. And normally it comes down to this one word: fear. Fear. They're afraid to commit to relationship because they haven't done the work to undo something in their heart that happened in their past.
Wow.
And so it's a spirit of fear. And the problem with that is that where fear is, love doesn't grow. See, perfect love casts out all what? Fear.
All fear.
So yeah, so it's not likely that that person can grow in love with you if they still have a stronghold of fear. So that non-commitment, non-committal, whatever it may be, that's a spirit of fear, and that needs right, and a real work needs to be done in them. It takes courage to love. It takes courage to love. If you really understand what love is, which is making the decision to make someone else the beneficiary of you. That's what love comes down to, is making the decision to benefit another person with your best self.
Mm.
That takes courage. It takes courage. And when you're not really solid internally, then you're either not going to make that commitment, you're going to hem and haw to make that commitment, you see, or I've seen people get into marriages and then all of a sudden they start thinking about everything they might have lost when they got married.
Wow. Wow. So should somebody wait for 5 years? You said the 5 years they're just trying to decide if they're right for each other. What's your take on that?
If people been going back and forth for 5 years trying to decide if they're right for each other,
Should
move on,
somebody just cut it off?
move on.
Just
See,
move on?
I'm telling you, okay, you asked about the good men, the men that are solid and ready for a relationship and all that. That's who these ladies are looking for, right? I'm
Right.
telling you right now that a solid man, somebody that enters into the dating scene, number one, we don't recreationally date. We don't date just to play games. A good man is looking for a wife. That's what he's looking for. He's looking for a wife. Now, and once a good man has found what he considers to be a wife, okay, it does not take that man long to determine that, because he's watching the way she handles her responsibilities. He's watching her ability, number one, ability to nourish, to nurture. You know, he's watching many things that point to her ability to be a wife. But it does not take a man 5 years in relationship with you to determine if you're the one for him. Think about and I know we don't live in the Middle East or in Israel or anywhere, but um, I have one of my sons in ministry right now, Rajesh Babu. His marriage was arranged by his mother and his father and his wife's mother and father. It was an arranged marriage, right? Now, uh, that's a lot what biblical marriages were like. A lot of biblical marriages were arranged marriages. Okay, uh, those and there was no dating in the Bible per se. There was a process called betrothal. Okay, whereby the marriage was arranged by the parents of those who were now being connected. And then that man went, the Bible says, I go to prepare a place for you, that where I am there, you might be also, right? So the groom, the prospective husband, went and prepared a place for his bride. And then he came back, and then essentially crept through a window and took her away like a thief of the night, in the night, so that where he was, she would be with him. So this was about a 9-month process, the betrothal process. Okay, well, 9 months. Now, I'm not giving a law. I'm giving a suggestion. Okay, in 9 months, you get to see what somebody's pregnant with.
Okay.
Okay, how long does it take to have a baby? 9 months. So in 9 months, you get to see what somebody's pregnant with. In 9 months, you get a little bit of summer, spring, winter, and fall. So you get to see this person in every season of their life. And I've talked about this a little bit in one of the classes. You get to see them in every season of their life. So you get to see them in summer, spring, winter, and fall. Okay, the changes, you get to see how they handle things that go on. I really do believe that that's sort of a biblical template and pattern for how long it should take when you enter into that space to really determine, is this the one? Is this the one I want to commit to in love? I don't believe it takes more than a year to figure that out.
Well, we have a gentleman on here that says, ugh, UGH. What do you think? Do you know a Nathaniel Terry, and why that comment may be happening in the midst of this conversation?
I do know a Nathaniel Cherry, and he is someone directly under my mentorship, and he's saying "ugh" because he has heard this before and directly heard it from me.
Okay. Okay. I mean, that's really interesting. Nathaniel, if you're watching, I really like to know what part of this conversation drew that kind of response, because sometimes trying to understand a statement like that, you be like, oh, what?
Let me share something with you. I've been married to my wife for 30 years. This August will be 30 years. Okay. My wife is the only woman I have ever loved in my entire life. Okay. And we didn't marry as believers. We were sinners when we got married. But I got born again 1 year after I got married to my wife. I got born again. And so the Judeo-Christian ethic began forming how I do marriage. Now, I love my wife, been married to my wife for 30 years, and I've learned what it means to love unconditionally and unreservedly and deeply from the heart, for no reason other than that God is love. But I'm telling you right now, if I were not married, it would not take me long to get married, because I know I'm not the single type. I don't want to be single. I pray for God's strength for those of you that carry on this single business, because I'm not one of those people that want to be single. I got married at 21 because I wanted to be married. That's a whole nother conversation. My wife was 19 when we got married. I was 21, and we still married almost 30 years later. But again, I wanted to be married. I was ready to be married. And I was ready to enter into the process of dying to myself and learning to love one person unconditionally and unreservedly. So I say that to say this: if I were not married right now, with my values, with my standards, with my growth and where I am right now, if I were not married right now, it would not take me long to get married again.
Wow. Well, I don't know. I don't. You must know a secret, because for me, I guess I've been in the wrong environment. Because even though you have a lot of opportunities,
You know,
uh, your values cause you to just have to walk away from certain situations, and so it always causes women to believe that it's easier for a man to find a quality person than it is for a woman. So
well,
is that
hold on.
true?
We got to hold on to our standards, but get over our delusion.
Uh-oh. Now break that down.
Okay, okay? Hold on to your standards. They should be a believer, because you want someone whose life is founded upon a rock. You cannot build on sand. Okay, you should, again, you want to look for certain characteristics, like the ability to put someone else before himself. That's what a husband can do, is put a wife and kids before themselves. But and those are just some of the characteristics. But you ought to get over the delusion that you're going to marry the perfect person. Ain't going to happen. You're not going to marry the perfect person. And you don't deserve a perfect marriage, or you don't deserve a great marriage. You get to build one with whoever you marry.
Mhm.
So we need to get over the delusion that we're going to find someone who is going to be no work, who is never going to challenge us, who we're never going to have a disagreement with, and who we're never going to argue with. We need to get over the delusion that someone is going to be so perfect and we're going to be so compatible that we're not going to get on each other's nerves. We need to get over that delusion, because even if you found someone, when you find someone who is walking out their values, you still are going to create, there's still going to be tension, because you got two individuals that are now becoming one. And so you got different backgrounds, you got different frames of reference, you got different child rearing beliefs, you got different money habits, you got different ambitions in life, and all of that has to get married. And most times you don't even know you need to marry all of that until you experience tension. So hold on to your standards, but come off fantasy island and believing that you're gonna you know you're gonna whoever you marry is not gonna be any work. That's delusional to believe you're gonna marry somebody who is not gonna be any work in terms of becoming one with them.
So, in your opinion, then that's a delusion to believe that it's easier for a man than a woman
Easier for a man than a woman to do what?
to find quality, meet quality people. Not people that, not people that's going to need work, but just people that basically are going to be able to handle all of who you are. Really.
Yeah. Well, I don't believe it's harder. I believe it's sometimes the again it comes back to the narrative that a person believes when they go out into the world. If you believe you can't, you're right. If you believe you can, you're right. So I believe a lot of times if you already start with an expectation, nobody's real, nobody's good enough, nobody's solid, then you're gonna you know probably any little thing with somebody becomes a turnoff, because not because of standards, but because of a narrative that even though I'm not perfect, someone else has to be absolutely perfect if they step to me.
Got it.
You see?
So, I'm sorry, were you finished?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Okay. So Nathaniel said it was based on him knowing he have a lot to learn. And he says there's so much information I can't pinpoint the exact point. And then Rodney says, great teaching, Apostle. Thank you for fathering me. And then Maureen Brown says, teach, Apostle. All of these statements bring me back to the Mordecai Masterclass.
Mhm.
Now, the Masterclass is not actually a class where you're standing up teaching them, right? It's where they're logging in and they're going to watch the teachings, correct?
Right. They basically, on this link, they log in, they enroll. There's a one-time enrollment fee of $50, and there are 28 videos in the class. So they're logging into a portal. They're watching the videos at their own convenience. They're commenting, and then I'm replying to their comments. I'm interacting. There's also an email portion in there where I'm sending them updates via email, or I'm making comments. And in some cases, if they ask a question that I believe that we need to delve into, then I'll create an entire video to just answer that one question that someone asks, so that the group can share from that discussion as well. So it's online. It's all virtual.
All virtual. And say, for instance, they go all the way through your master class, they graduate. Do they have an appointment with you if they meet somebody, or do they talk to you if they meet somebody on that portal? How interactive is that piece?
Well, the reward of your discipline is your personal development. And so, yeah, that's the reward. The reward is that they can look at themselves. I have people that are in the class literally that are over 60, and they're saying, I've never been taught this. Where were you when I was 40? Because they just recognize the value of the information that's being shared. And so basically it's all about their readiness. Now, again, a lot of people, a number of people, I should say, in the master class are also members of our church. So they call me or set meetings or whatever it may be, but I provide interaction right there in the portal. They can also email me. They send video testimonials. So there's more than enough interaction there if they want it, in order to get any questions answered or whatever it may be.
So is there somebody that can put the link in the chat for us so that maybe the people can just click on it, log in?
I think the comments are locked because I don't see any comments. Yeah, I think they are, unless it's just, I may be wrong, but.
Oh, okay. Well, I guess what I'll do is when we're finished, I'll put the link in up under the caption, and that way they'll be able to log in. Let's see, one more thing you brought up, 10 things to do when your spouse won't act right. Is that
10 things to do when your spouse won't do right? So that's an audio book.
That's an audio book.
Yeah. So in 30 years, my wife and I have given each other enough trouble to probably write an encyclopedia worth of books. So we just learned along the way what to do with each other when we would get on each other's nerves. And so I took my portion, and I essentially put together an audio book, 10 things to do when your spouse won't do right. And just some keys that helps an individual to process, what do I do when the one I married is malfunctioning? And so it's an audio book. That audio book is only $13.99. They'll discover that from the link as well. So we'll put that link, I think, on your page as well. I'm going to also put both links back on my page, Mark Jones on Facebook. So I'll put the links on my page as well, so they can refer to them that way as well.
Wow. So is there anything that's really pressing on your heart that you feel like you really like to share right now?
Yeah, I got to say that the reason I did Mordecai's class for up and coming queens is because I watch people struggle for the lack of process. People struggle for the lack of process. I watch people end up in relationships that a blind man could see that they're not good for them because they didn't have accountabilities in their life. They didn't allow anyone into a space. You know, for example, as a pastor, I have people all the time who come to me with their their boo, and they allow me to speak transparently about my concerns. I don't tell people who to marry. I help them to learn how to marry. And
That's good.
so yeah, so this masterclass is written from a paternal standpoint, from a fathering standpoint. I just want people to get the information they need to be in the best possible condition before they put themselves in that dating arena. So that's the whole point of this is helping provide for people a process who otherwise have never had a process. You know, some people have never had a father's love. They've never had, and I say this also in the class, part of the very necessary formation of the female soul is that she is subjected to non-sexual love of a male. That's why God put a father there so that that female soul could be formed by the non-sexual love, someone who loves you and who is a part of your becoming, who protects, provides, secures, and gives you a sense of identity. Now that's supposed to be how everyone goes out into the dating scene. They're supposed to go out into that world from a standpoint of having been protected, provided for, secured, so that they go out into that world in a solid state. And that's really what we're gearing toward with the class, is to help each person that enrolls to get into a solid state and a state of preparation through intentional learning and engagement of the information.
Wow, that's good. That is good. Now, do you have single classes at your church? I know you have marriage classes, but if somebody's in the Tampa area and they really want to get connected, let's talk a little bit about your church.
Yes, we do. Well, let me mention we have a group. I know they just changed the name of it. I'm probably going to say it wrong, but we have a group called Unwed for Now. I know they just changed the name of it, but Pastor Crystal Bales, who is one of my assistant pastors, is the person who leads that particular class at our church. And this is where unwed people get together and they do life. They have conversation. They do outings. Normally their events are not at the church on purpose, so that they can get out of that scene and just connect on a personal level. If anyone here goes to centerformanifestation.com, click on departments, you'll find Unwed for Now, which is under the leadership of Pastor Crystal at our church. Our website is www.centerformanifestation.com, www.centerformanifestation.com. If anyone wants to find out more information about our organization, there is a manifestation that, yeah. If anyone wants to find out more information about our organization, just go to the website, centerformanifestation.com, and a lot of information is there about our ministry.
Okay, I think we got it right now. Centerformanifestation.com.
Yeah, manifestation is TATION.
Okay.
I'm gonna stick
Thank
with that.
you. T-A.
MANIFESTATION.
I am developing some great, look at there. And then I turned around and it did not correct. TATION.
There you go.
And so
Yeah, our church, we are located in East Tampa, right near Ybor City. We have a very progressive work, 70 plus in-reach and outreach ministries. Literally, we minister to every aspect of the family. We have 2 services on Sunday, 8 and 10:30, Bible study on Wednesday night, and we're open 7 days a week. We have a very large campus and minister to our inner city there. So check us out.
and you said 8 and 10:30 a.m.
Yes, 8 a.m. and 10:30. 8 a.m. is called express service because you're in at 8 and out at 10:30. And then the 10:30 service is called engulf because that's exactly what happens. We just get engulfed and linger in the presence of the Lord, and I preach too long and all that jazz.
That's funny. That is funny. Wow. Well, it has been absolutely amazing having you here again. I would like also to give people an opportunity, as always, to sow into your ministry, or perhaps they would want to sponsor somebody
Mhm.
for the master class. That's the
Yeah.
best way to get the greatest harvest is to sponsor somebody.
I
Uh,
have had I have had so many people who sponsor others, and the way they do that, if they want to cash app Dr. Mark T. Jones,
okay.
dollar sign Dr. Mark T. Jones, if they will cash app me, then whoever they want to sponsor, if they just want to sponsor someone anonymously, then we'll do an anonymous sponsor link, and I'll send that to someone so they can enroll. Or, of course, they can always directly sponsor whoever they want to sponsor by doing the same.
Well, Rodney Norton definitely says that his life has been completely changed sitting up under this man of God. Tiffany Bird has posted the Mordecai class for upcoming queens and kings, and Farron Alexander has said amen. So I know that tonight has been very informative for myself. I'm going to enroll in the class because I'm going to enroll in the class myself. And so if there's somebody else out there that really want to be sponsored, just reach out and just let us know, and we'll see what we can do to get you in this master class. So, Dr. Mark, as always, it is such a pleasure to have you with us. Again, if anybody would like to sow into Dr. Mark's life, and the Center for Manifestation, where they're doing so many things. We didn't even talk about all the many projects that they have going on, all of the missions, and all of those things that Dr. Mark, his wife, and his coach are doing. But trust me when I say it is a really good ground. So make that step, sow that seed tonight, cash out Dr. Mark T. Jones. If you don't do cash out, feel free to inbox him. Is that okay? And they can
Oh,
get
sure,
your
that's fine.
email and PayPal and all that information. With that being said, I'm gonna let you have the final comments.
Well, I do want to mention also for your viewers that may not be familiar with us, on YouTube, there's a video documentary called This is Manifestation City. So if you
Oh,
just go to YouTube and type in This is Manifestation City, we have a documentary that talks about our neighborhood mission and sort of take you on a tour of Manifestation City so you can see all that we do. So I totally encourage you to check that out and let us know if any way we can touch your life through the various ministries that we have. Again, Dr. Victoria, I thank you so much for inviting me to be a part of this broadcast. And I just pray God's best and God's blessing upon your life.
well, thank you again, and God bless you. And give give our love to your wife. And we say thank you again. And hey, like I said, I'm getting ready to go sign up now. I'm out of town, but I'm gonna still sign up today for the Mordecai Masterclass. All
Thank
right.
you.
Thank you.
All right. God bless you all. Have a good night.
Mhm.